Over the past 2 years, I've given over 7,000 online golf lessons. And I'm gonna tell you one thing, there is one swing flaw that I see on a daily basis that ruins golfers' ball striking. If you have this movement, you probably suffer from really poor backswing rotation. You might even collapse the arms on the way back, and you definitely have a golf swing that is way too long. All of those swing flaws come from one movement, and that movement is a sway. Now, to explain exactly what a sway is, it's where the lower body shifts way too far away from the target. So let me provide you an example of this. If I was to set up to a golf ball and I place two lines, one on my lead side and one on my trail side here. If I sway, you're going to see my right side move through that line that's on my hip. So it would look a little bit like this. And you can see here that this movement is causing all of those issues I said at the start. It causes poor rotation, it causes collapsed arms, and it causes a very long golf swing because the wrists break down at the top of the golf swing. So from this angle here, although we can't draw the lines that we want, we're going to still see that poor rotation in the backswing. We're going to see the arms collapse, and we're going to see an extremely long swing because the wrists have broken down due to this movement. Now, the other thing you'll see from this face-on view is if you place a line on my left ear. So let me get into my setup position, and I'm going to place a line on my left ear or my lead ear. What you're going to see if I have a sway pattern is that my upper body tips over towards the target. So if my right hip moves away, my upper body tips over towards the target, and you're going to see there that my head position goes ahead of that line that I drew on my left ear. So you'll see trail side is pushed too far this way, upper body is tilting too much this way. Now, as a result of this pattern, we have to do the opposite on the way down. Now, because my arms are collapsed, because my wrists are essentially too hinged, they're too long here, if I start my downswing, I'm going to push my lower body forward, which then creates this upper body backing up way too much. Now, as a result, we could end up with a ton of different ball flights. We could fat the ball, we could get the club to enter the ground way too early, we could thin the ball because we're hitting up on it too much, we could block the ball, and we can pull the ball or hook the ball. So there's so many errors when I see this action. So if I replicate that sway pattern from this angle, the other thing that can commonly happen is when golfers think that they should rotate to start the downswing, you're not in a position to rotate. So when you do rotate, what's going to happen is you're going to see this club get super steep. My arms are going to go out towards the ball. You can see the shaft here is super steep, and basically what you're going to end up doing is cutting across the golf ball, resulting in slices or pulls, or what I see a lot of the time as well is the golfer comes over the top of it so fast that they then have to lift up, early extend, cast the golf club, and then they end up either shanking it, hitting it out to the right, or contact is just not great. So as I said at the start of this video, it is literally the worst swing flaw that I see on a daily basis because the golfer just has all those errors. They might have one, they might have two, they might have all of them. So what should we do? How do we fix a sway pattern? Well, let me set up to the golf ball and we'll put those lines back on and show you exactly what we're looking for. So now that I'm set up to the golf ball perfectly, we're gonna put those lines back on my trail side and my lead side. Now, what we would be looking for is for this trail side not to go through that line that's there. So essentially, we're looking to turn the right hip around the corner a lot better, and we're not going to see it moving through. So let me make a backswing where we want to try and eliminate that sway. So you'll see there that my right hip has not gone through that line. But one thing to really make sure that you're not doing is to actually go this way too much. So one of the flaws that I see with players trying to fix their sway pattern is in order to not go this way, they actually end up going this way. Now that's not what we want to do, because if you see that line, there's now a massive gap between this right hip or this trail hip and that line that I've got there. So we want to try and at least stay on that line, not necessarily go through it, definitely not go through it, but not necessarily go away from it in that regard as well. So let's put those lines back on there again, and I'm going to make sure that I'm turning nice and centered while still loading pressure into my trail side. Now, one thing to also note is, where is my upper body at the top of my backswing? Is it tipped over towards the target, or is it slightly away from the target? You can see that the chest is actually over my trail foot, whereas when you sway, what ends up happening is the chest goes over my lead foot, and that's a sure sign that we've got really poor pivot and body movement. So we want to try and set up to that golf ball. Again, feel that chest move over towards that trail foot in the backswing, while trying to rotate that right side around the corner. And this will give you a really, really good feeling to then start the downswing with some lateral shift and then proceed to swing through, and that'll fix all those flaws. So if you are someone who sways in that backswing, what's a great drill? Well, thankfully I'm at home today, and I'm actually gonna go and do some inside work with this ball right here. So come along, let's go inside. So to eliminate that sway pattern, what I want you to do is come inside, find a wall that's on your lead side, on your lead hip. And I want you to grab a ball. Now, the ball could be just about anything. I personally use this Tour Striker ball. It's the perfect size and it's nice and soft, okay? So it doesn't damage your wall and it's really, really easy to use. So what I want you to do, in order to eliminate the sway, we're going to put this ball on the wall and we're gonna put the left hip just on that ball. Now, when you first get into this position, it does feel a little bit strange, okay? You've got to kind of wiggle your way in there a little bit. And the whole idea here is that you don't want this ball to fall. So think about the sway movement where golfers move in this direction, right? If you do that with this ball on the wall, you're going to soon realize that that ball is going to fall. So in order to eliminate that, I want you to feel like the right hip works more around the corner, but the goal is to keep this ball on the wall, okay? So put that ball just opposite your left hip there, get comfortable in there. I want you to put your arms across the chest, and your goal is to turn, keeping that ball on the wall. Very, very simple drill here. And what you're going to notice there is I'm able to rotate without that ball falling down off my left hip. Now, one thing to be aware of here is I am still moving into my trail side. I'm not trying to keep this ball on the wall by stacking pressure into that ball. That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm still loading pressure into this leg when I do this movement. And if you have an appropriate size ball that you're using, you should see this ball roll on the wall. If you're under-rotated during this movement, you'll find that that ball doesn't really move. Okay, so we want that ball to roll along the wall just like so. So that's going to fix the sway pattern. Now think about the upper body. If we're not moving our upper body in this direction, we're actually moving it in the opposite direction. We're moving it in a way where it's moving away from the target. So if I rotate to the right, for me as a right-handed golfer, you'll see that my upper body is a little bit more over this side. And I like to say, get your chest to move over your right shoe or your trail foot. So if you're a lefty, chest over trail foot, okay? And that's going to give you a really good sensation. Now, of course, you want to try and do this with a club in your hand. My advice would be to cut down an old club. And you can see this is just a very small club, okay? And this means that I'm not going to damage my house when I do these drills. So again, grab the ball on the wall, grab a little club, and I'm going to try and replicate that same feel before I go back outside to hit some golf balls. So again, load into that right side, keeping that ball on the wall. And you'll see there it is literally impossible to make a sway movement. So that's what I want you to work on during these practice sessions inside at your house, or if it's just outside on a wall near your range. That's a great drill to stop the sway pattern. So now that we've created these feels inside, let's take those feels back outside and hit some golf shots. So now that you've done those drills, whether it was inside or you found a wall at a driving range, again, we're trying to feel like that ball is on that wall and that we're trying to make sure that our movement is the left hip staying on that ball, which then allows us to turn this right hip around the corner a lot better, as opposed to, obviously, as you saw, if I drift this way, this ball being on the wall would drop down. So let's put all of that together. The feeling to avoid that sway pattern would be to get this right hip working more around the corner, chest over the trail foot, and that's going to give me a feeling that the upper body is more behind the ball. I'm then going to be able to produce a lot better movement into the golf ball. And as you can see, even with that movement, you think about the arms and the wrists that we spoke about at the start, there's no need for them to collapse anymore. So when I was swaying and tipping over, I needed to get length in the golf swing. So then what happens is the arms and the wrists kind of break down and then they cast this way. So with my new technique, I'm able to actually feel like when my chest is over my right shoe, I'm able to feel like my arms can actually stay further away from me and my wrists are there's no need for them to collapse and overhinge. So let's give this a go on a ball. If I get set up here, again, right hip around the corner, arms nice and wide, chest over the right shoe, and that feels like a really solid golf swing. So there you have it. That was a pretty comprehensive lesson on how to stop that sway. Like I said, I've given over 7,000 golf lessons in just over 2 years. That's a lot of lessons, and I know that this pattern is super common amongst golfers. Now, if you would like to work with me, I do online coaching, so anywhere in the world, I can help you. Visit the link in my description below, and you'll see online coaching, and I also have multiple different ways you can work with me. I've got my academy, there's 250 lessons on there, and I've got all my video series training how to make a swing change, how to train indoors. I've got my ebook, which is full of purposeful practice games. So literally, if you watch this video and you want to work with me, you can't not get better at this game. See you soon.